Hi, Peggy.
Hi, Mario. How are you?
My leg is killing me. Apart from that,
Why? Why?
my knee.
Your knee? Did you ever have this before?
No.
Did you ever have it before? Uh-oh. So you're gonna go to the doctor to check it out?
Yeah, I have to go to an orthopedist because
Or-
it wants.
Right.
I'm using a cane.
Oh, because I said to Ellie, I didn't see you in shul.
Yeah, because it was. I didn't go last night either. I couldn't step on my leg.
Oh, wow. Okay. Before shame, I hope you feel better.
Yeah, thank you.
How's Hanala doing?
Good, good. Hold on a second. I got a call from Adriana.
Hi, Barbara. Good to
Hi, Shavuot Tov. How are you?
Good, Baruch Hashem. How are
This is
you?
awfully convenient, right?
Yeah.
I just feel bad. I have a Reisman chair that I was going to. So I wouldn't mind if you did it on Sunday night.
But I understand that,
I understand that, right? I do. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hello, Shavuot Tov.
Shavuot Tov.
So how are you, Bernie?
Good. Shoshana and her family are leaving tomorrow morning.
Oh, how was it?
Oh, we had a lovely visit with them. Thank God.
Oh, no. Nice. Very nice.
Did you have Babette come too?
Babette only came for Martin Luther King weekend because she really didn't have off. She only had that one day off. And then might come in February when they have off. The problem is she teaches at Heschel and she doesn't have the same vacation as SAR. So it's a problem.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's a problem, yeah.
Huh?
So it's going to be hard for them to go back. Carolyn said they had a blizzard last night.
But I looked at the weather. It said it was clear, sunny yesterday today in New York.
Oh, really?
There wasn't snow?
No, there was wind warnings, gale wind warnings, but didn't look like there was any snow yesterday or today.
So no cancellation of any flights.
Well, we're soon going to check the flight schedule.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's see.
Do you have a grandson in Israel, Bernie?
Yes, he's in Shalavim,
Oh, great.
Wonderful.
having a wonderful experience. Yeah.
Is this his first year?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the #1 yeshiva that the boys are trying to get into. So he's lucky he got in.
Really depends on the type of yeshiva you're looking for.
Right.
That's absolutely true.
Right.
My grandson's in Torah Chaim, and that's pretty much in demand.
Mhm.
It's really
They usually want to go with some of their friends.
right.
As long as they have.
My
their way-
grandson-in-law is a Rebbe in Shalabim, Rabbi Reich.
Oh, I actually went to visit my grandson. We were there Thanksgiving, and he was giving a shiur to. He's the Rebbe for my grandson. He's very good.
He's brilliant. He's brilliant. I know him well.
Oh.
He's married to my very good friend's daughter. They love him. They love him. He's I forgot what's his first name. I can't see your moment. Yeah. He's Ellie Wright.
I know he got a smicha from YU.
Yeah,
But
Ellie
I don't
Wright.
know if
All
it's-
his brothers are doctors. All his brothers are doctors, and he's the most brilliant of them all, but he wanted to go into chinuch.
Hi, Ernie.
Welcome, everybody.
Shavuot Tov.
All right.
Hi, Harold.
Hi, Mario.
Hey, Mario,
Oh, there you are. Hi, Mario.
how are you? Have a shul today?
I didn't go. My leg, it won't let me go.
Oh, okay.
What's with your leg?
Something with my knee. I don't know what it is. I couldn't walk. I'm
Yeah.
using a cane.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I have to go to the orthopedist, I suppose.
Mr. Big Kiddush here, Mario.
Yeah?
The desert. Harold was the sponsor of the Big Kiddush today.
Ah,
Oh, okay.
Proud, it was packed there today.
Oh, really?
Packed.
Wow.
Mario was with me a few weeks ago. There were like 7 or 8 people when we started Minyan.
Yeah.
Today there was like 50.
Oh. Wow.
And George was supposed to be there, but Shoshana got COVID.
Oh,
I sorry to hear that.
Where's Ernie? I'm looking
You
for Ernie.
saying Shoshana's the COVID bench?
He's the cover bench.
Yeah. What happened to Ernie?
Where's Ernie?
What was
He's
that?
there. Yeah, we were looking for you.
Oh, yeah.
Good walk, everybody. Good walk.
so,
I think we left off on Pasuk Yud Beit in Perek Kaf Chet. Excuse me, Perek Kaf Vav 26, Pasuk Yud Bet.
You're back.
Oh,
Might be a
yeah.
review. If you remember, Shaul is again chasing David, despite the fact that he had promised not to. And again, David sees that David and one of his soldiers sneak into the camp of Shaul and Avner, and they see that they're all sleeping. Vayikach David et hachanit vetzapachat hamayim merashotei Shaul. There was a spear that Shaul had implanted into the ground at his head. So David himself took the spear, vayalchu lahem, and they left with it. Ve'ein roeh ve'ein yodea ve'ein mekitz. Nobody knew, nobody saw, nobody woke up. Ki kulam yishenim ki tardemat Hashem nafla alehem. By the way, so you notice David himself takes the sword, takes the spear, because he didn't want Avishai, the soldier, to get close with the spear in his hand. He might not be able to conquer his Yetzer and end up killing Shaul. And remember, David didn't want Shaul killed.
What's in the tzapachas? Does it say? What, just water?
Tzapachas hamayim, correct.
Just a canteen.
Tzapachas hamayim. By the way, there's a famous medrash that a spider or a wasp saved David at another time from Avner.
At the cave.
So there's a medrash that says like this. It's really from Avner. Omer lo David ibnei ma kadosh baruch hu bara ba'olam tzirin va'achvish. Why did Hashem create wasps and spiders? Shemafsidin vein b'hem hana. I mean, they just cause damage. There's no hana from them. Why? Everything that Kadosh Baruch Hu creates, he creates for a reason. Why do you create these things? Omer lo pamachas haya David melech Yisrael alav hashalom yoshev begino. David melech was in his garden, v'ra tzira ochelet achbish. And he saw a wasp eating a spider. Uba shoytu v'yado eitz v'haya megarshim. And he took a stick and he chased him away. Omer David v'nei Kadosh Baruch Hu, Rebbeinu shalom, ma no be'elu shebaratu b'lamecha tzira ocheles dvash, that the wasp eats up honey, umashcheses and destroys. Ve'en ba'no. Achbish yarok kol hashana v'loy b'shenu. A spider weaves a whole year and nobody wears it. I mean, nobody wears spider web. It's not something that has been commercialized. And David is saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what's the purpose of this? David, Maliga talabrios? You're making fun of the creations? Tavor sha'ah v'titztarech lahem. There will come a time where you will need them. V'teida lama nivro, and you'll know why they were created. Ucheshenechba b'ma'ara mipnei Shaul HaMelech. Right? We learned this parak already when David was in the cave. Sholach HaKadosh Baruch Hu achbish v'argal pi amarav v'sagroto. Hashem sent the spider to make a web. So Bashol v'ra arug. He caused the spider to weave the web after David was in the cave. So Shaul shows up and says, "Oh, nobody could be in this cave. V'vaday lo nichnas adam heina. She'im nichnas haya korei ha'arug lekroim v'halach v'lo nichnas l'sham." So Shaul HaMelech did not enter the cave because he said nobody could be hiding in that cave. So he went away. So it's not exactly the same story where actually Shaul went into the cave and David cut a corner. It's another story that the Medrash brings over. That it was another time where David was hiding in a cave and Shaul didn't enter the cave because the spider had saved him. David nashka. He kissed the spider. And then there's another story with Avner and the Tzira. But this is a famous story, but it appears here in the Medrash regarding the spider saving David. A lot of us know that story, but this is the actual wording of the Medrash. Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayavor David ha'ever. So David crossed over away from the camp of Shaul. Vayamod al rosh ha'ar mirachok rava makom b'neim. And he stands on a hilltop far away from Shaul's camp.
Ernie, you didn't explain the insect. Did you mention something about the insect biting Avner?
You mean the tzira? Well, I didn't.
Yeah.
I stopped them. I only told the story of the spider. But we can do this other. If you remember, in David's flight away from Shaul, he ended up by Achish Melech Gat. He made himself a Meshigana. And Achish thought he was a crazy person. Kivan Sheviu Elav. Eventually, they brought David to Achish. Achish also had a daughter that was a Meshugana. We went through this pasuk. So again, David escaped and he thanked Hashem. Even a Meshigana, that he benefited from that. Uvizman shemotza David l'shol shoichev v'tzarayim v'hayesh Avner shoichev v'petach rosho v'petach acher v'raglav skufot ba. So on this occasion, when David found Shaul and Avner sleeping, v'nichnas b'bein raglav v'natat tzapach hasamayim, he crept between his legs and took the canteen of water. Ucheshabalotzes b'bein raglav poshat Avner raglav v'chisau bam. While sleeping, Avner stretched out his legs and he covered it. So these were like two strong pillars that David couldn't breach. And the Medrash here says that's when David uttered the words Keli Keli Lama Zavtani. So Hashem sent the wasp. V'nashka ragle Avner, and bit Avner's legs. V'zakfan, and therefore he sort of moved them. V'yatza David v'shibeach l'kadosh baruch hu. V'lo roy le'ben adam lahalik b'masa'el. So that's why this Medrash appears, because this happens when David is trying to get into the circle of Avner and Shaul, and that's the tzira. So there's the spider and the tzira. The tzira is like a wasp. Thank you, Bernie. Yudal. Vaikra David ela Amel Avner ben Ner lemor. David calls out and to Avner, Halotane Avner. Answer Avner. Vayan Avner vayom miata karalamel. Who is this that's calling? Who is this that's calling to the king? So the Radak, you can follow along if you have the Radak, says that Amr lo David. Ma yesh lecha la'anot Avner. What do you have to say for yourself, Avner? Harei amarta ala ma'ara. When David and Shaul were in the cave and you found out about it, you said, Ilu haya osemu uma. If David had touched Shaul's even fingernail, hayinu nichnosim l'shamu mechatchim lato aver aver, we would cut him up into pieces. So hachanit v'tzapachas ma yesh lecha la'anot. David is pointing out to Avner, you were claiming that you're the big protector of Shaul. Well, what about the spear and this canteen that I have in my hands? I obviously took it, and you're not concerned about Shaul's safety. And remember, Avner was the one who was hayseat at Shaul. David. Avner was one of the people that was inflaming Shaul, that David was against him, and never allowing reconciliation between David and Shaul. And in fact, Avner was the one who said, David, lo haya im Shaul b'marav v'chatach bigdo ela b'sirahu aret. Avner claimed to Shaul that this was not David who cut off your corner of your garment and saved you, but rather it was a thorn that plucked it off. He was always giving ideas to Shaul that it was not David HaMelech that he was in favor. So now, Achshav ba elav David v'omer lo Avner, Achshav mata oneh. Listen, I have his spear, I have his canteen. You didn't protect him.
Obviously, he's not doing a very good job in protecting him in both situations, both in the cave and here again. And he's using a rationale here, but I guess this was his duty to protect Shaul. So he obviously wasn't doing a very good job, was he?
No, that's what David is pointing out by doing what he did. But again, he's trying, in essence, he's trying to get Shaul to believe that David really has nothing against Shaul, and to point out to Shaul that he's being incited by the people around him. Esvav, Vayomer David al Avner. Halo ishata umicha mocha b'Yisrael. You are an ish, you are an important person. Who is like you among Israel? V'lama lo shamarta el adonecha melech. Exactly like Barbara said. How come you didn't watch your king? Somebody, an assassin, could have come and killed him. The Musar HaNeviim says, "Dimashochiach David es Avner b'dvar ma'elu. Nira lomer shezeu b'nei she'Avner haya omer delakachu rodef achrei David. B'nei shemuta alav lishmor tamelech miyad hakamim alav." The whole point why Avner is telling Shaul to chase after, because there are people chasing after him and trying to kill him. On that really point, David is giving toichacha to Avner. He's not obviously protecting the king. So the whole point that Avner is making, that's why I'm around you and I'm protecting you, is really not correct. Lo tova davar hazeh asher asita. I'm reading Tet Zayin. This is not good what you've done, Avner. Chai Hashem, ki bnei mavet atem. And he takes a shvua that you are really people of death. Asher lo shmartem al adonechem al Mashiach Hashem, that you forgot your duty of watching the anointed of Hashem. Look, isn't this the spear and the canteen and the flask that belongs to the king? And the fact that the Das Soifrim says that David declared that Avner is Chayv Misa because he wanted Shaul to punish him, because he was the main masis against David HaMelech. Vayaker Shaul et kol David. Shaul recognizes David's voice. Vayomer hakolcha zeh bni David. Is this the voice of my son David? Vayomer David koli adoni hamelech. He says, yes, it's my voice. Vayomer lama zeh adoni rodef achrei avdo. Why are you chasing after me, says David. Ki me'asisi uma bi'adi ra. What have I done? What bad have I done?
This is like a repeat of what happened previously when they had when David managed to escape and then called out from the other side of the mountain. What have I done? Why are you trying to catch me and kill me?
Says the Medrash on this pasuk. Lama zadoni rodef achrei avdo. You notice David is referring to him as himself as a servant of Shaul. Derech eretz ba'adam.
Parsha? I'm going to stop the shear like a 1:45 or 10:10. Oh, sorry.
Derech eretz ba'adam. Kishu mochiach noten ponav bekotten. Ukishu mafayis noten einav begadol. When he's giving tochacha, you give tochacha to the less important person. And when you're trying to sort of apologize, you do it to the gadol. Kenas David, yeshediber dvorim tovim v'nechumim, hafach panav l'shaul. When David is speaking in a very humble way, that's what he said to Shaul. Lama zadoni rodef achrei avdo. Uchshamer dvorim kashim, hafach panav la'avner. V'omer lo tov hadavar ze asher asita. Chai Hashem kibnei mavet atem. So the Umash Rochiach David is Avner b'dvar ma'elu, says the Musar and Avim Lir Shazer l'nei Avner Araya Omer de Lakachu Rodef. Yeah, so we learned that already. We mentioned that. Ve'ata yishmad ve'ata says Pasuk Yutes. Ve'ata yishmad Ari HaMelech et Divrei Avdo. Please listen to my words. Im Hashem hasitcha. Is it Hashem that has caused you to chase after me? Ki yarach mincha? Yarach mincha. You know what? If it's Hashem, I'm going to bring a mincha to Hashem as a korban. If it's Hashem that's against me. The imbnei ha'adam arurim heim lifnei Hashem. But if it's people, cursed people that are the ones that are being macied against me, ki gershuni ayom yistapech b'nachlas Hashem. This event is causing me to have to leave the Nachal of Hashem. What's the Nachal of Hashem? Eretz Yisrael. David is realizing that he's going to have to escape from Eretz Yisrael. Lay more. Lech avod elokim achirim. Go and worship other people. We know there's a chazal. Whoever leaves Eretz Yisrael, it's as if you're worshiping Avodah Zarah. I want to read a Gemara in Brachas based on this pasuk in Samech Beis, Amid Beis. Amar Rabbi Elazar. Amar le'HaKadosh Baruch Hu David. Macy's Karisali? Says Hashem, you called me a Macy's? I'm going to eventually cause you to fail in something that even a kid in Cheder knows. When you come to do a census, you can't count the people. Each person is going to give you machzis a shekel. And then we're going to count the machzis shekel. We're going to know how many people there are. There's a special isser to count Klal Yisrael. That's why men, when they're in a minyan and they try to count the people, whether there's 10 men, we don't count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We say, Hoshia et hamechu varches. It's a pasuk that has 10 words. Hoshia et hamechu varches ha'sechel reimen hasem ad olam. If we have 10 men, we count them that way because of this isser. However, Miyad, Vayamot Satan la Yisrael, Uksiv and Shmuel Beis, Vayaset et David Bahem Lemor, Lech Manat Yisrael, Kiva de Maninu lo Shokal Minayu Kofer. David HaMelech, he conducted a census directly, even though everybody knows the pasuk, even in a kid in Cheder. It's because he called Hashem a Mesid. Says the Musar Nevi'im, Ki midivrei David she'omar ki Hashem esisicha bi. That one of the thoughts of David, well, maybe it's Hashem that's causing the problem. Hayamashma shadam hashalem ba'atzmo eino roy lavo lideichen. If a person is a perfect person, he's not going to come to sin. Umashahu chotez erak l'nei shakadosh baruch hu meisito tolazeh. Maybe the reason why a person sins, somehow Hashem leads him to that. Oh, shehu mushpa b'bei anoshim roim shemesitin mosol asosra, or he's influenced by bad people. V'lachein herod HaKadosh Baruch Hu shehu alul yeh lavo lidei chet gam b'dvar sheHaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'atzmo hitru bo shelo yasekin. A human being can do a sin, even in something that Hashem warned persons not to do. Because David tripped over an Aveira that every child knows. It's not like David thought that the person is perfect, Hashem makes him do it. No, the evil comes from the person himself. And then when it's said in this pasuk that Ki gershuni hayom yistapech b'nachlas Hashem, that I'm being chased away from the nachal of Hashem, which is Eretz Yisrael, v'chima amar lo David leich avod. What is avod? What does worshiping avodah zarah have anything to do with the statement? Elo omer lecha. This is a Gemara in Ksubis Kuf Yud Amud Beis. Kol adar b'chutz la'aretz ki'ilu oved akum. Somebody who lives in chutz la'aretz, it's as if he's worshiping avodah zarah. And that's the remez here, that since he's now telling Shaul, because you're chasing after me, it's going to force me to leave Eretz Yisrael, it's as if it's forcing me to worship avodah zarah.
I see here in the Me'amlo, he fleshes it out a bit by mentioning that what's the reason that it's like you're Oved Avodah Zarah when you're Chutz La'aretz, because in Eretz Yisrael you're protected by Kadosh Baruch Hu, whereas the rest of the world it's only the Malachei Ashares that are overseeing what goes out in Chutz La'aretz. That's why they said a person who leaves Eretz Yisrael in a time of peace is like going to be to end up with praying to Avodah Zarah, because you're not able to learn Torah but in Chutz La'aretz the way you are in Eretz Yisrael. So you're more likely to go off the derech.
Very good. Says the Musar Nevi'im, a person cannot remain steadfast in Yiddishkeit with just his own powers. A person needs the tzibur. A person needs to live in a community. So, for example, we have Taryag mitzvos. An individual Jew cannot be Makayim Taryag mitzvos. I'm not a Kohen. I'm not a Bechor. The only way we Jews are Makayim Taryag mitzvos is as a tzibur, is as a community where we have Kohanim and we have farmers and it's everybody. Somebody who lives in Eretz Yisrael, there he's with the tzibur. As yesh alav ol malchut shamayim, he has true ol malchut shamayim. But v'im hu nimtza b'chutz la'aretz, who muvdal min haklal, who alul lavol l'basov gam l'dei avodah zarah. So when you're not part of a tzibur, you could come to avodah zarah. L'chein amar David shemednei shehu roeh kein poskim l'davach rav. He sees that people are not stopping to chase him. And he now knows he has to leave Eretz Yisrael and to dwell in a foreign country. It appears to him like he's going to have to worship avodah zarah. So exactly, it's an important limit. Pasuk Chav. Hang on. Right. So we learned that Gemara. There's another Gemara, the same Gemara in Ksubis, Kuf Yud. La'olam yidor adam be'eretz Yisrael afilu be'ir sheruba of the kochavim. Person should live in Eretz Yisrael, even in a city that has majority of idol worshippers. And not live in Chutz La'aretz, even in a city that is majority Jews. Somebody who lives in Eretz Yisrael, it's as if you have a God. So Rav Shimon Schwab, the Mordasra of the Yekisha community in Washington Heights, he explained like this: we don't understand very much about this Yetzer Hara Avodah Zarah. We know about certain Yetzer Haras, for example, sexual immorality. People understand they're drawn, they have lusts, they're drawn to that. But can we imagine today being drawn to a totem pole or to some kind of a Buddha? I mean, when you look at that, it doesn't draw us. But we know what being drawn, for example, to other vices. So we know Kadosh Baruch Hu, Chazal, when they came back to Eretz Yisrael after Churban Bayis Rishon, they davened that the Yetzer Hara Avodah Zarah should leave. And we don't have that Yetzer Hara. We see it b'chush. We see it ourselves. We don't have that. We have other Yetzer Haras. We don't have that. But in the time of Bayis Sheni, there was a tremendous lust towards Avodah Zarah that we don't understand. And the reason for this is a principle of Zelu Umat Zeh. The Michtav Meliyahu, Rav Yoel Dessler, talks about this a lot, that in order for us to be rewarded by Kodesh Baruch Hu, we have to have a real Bechira. If we saw, for example, a Kodesh Baruch Hu, we would say Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. It would be automatic, it would be like a reflex. So we have to have the good and evil on an even scale. If it was pure good and no evil in the world, we would not get schar for choosing good. So there is a desire towards evil that's been created, so we have a real bechira. So in the time of Bayis Sheni, where we have the Beis HaMikdash, we would see Nisim Gluyim in the Beis HaMikdash. So in order for us to have bechira, there had to be a strong koach hatuma. So the Avodah Zarah also was given some kind of koach. So it was on an even scale. So when we chose good, we would get schar for it because it was a real bechira. So Rav Schwab says, that's why Menashe Melech, they had idols in the Beis HaMikdash. So there's a Gemara by Rava, Menashe Melech appears to him in a dream and says, if you would have lived in our time, you would have run after the Avodah Zarah with both feet as well. So it's something that we have to think about. So the Rav Schwab says, V'yetzer hara hahu hayabonu el hachta bikshu dvarim ruchanim kedei lekarvus Hashem. It's intellectual spiritualism. The people then were interested in God. So we had the Beis HaMikdash, but then there were other forms that the Avodah Zarah dragged you to. It was still looking for spirituality, says Rav Schwab. It was done in a wrong way. So Chazal says, Mi shadar be'eretz Yisrael, bizman sheshchina shruya sham, dome k'mish yesh loka. The machmat hitkarvut el Hashem nitma'et ha'yetzer hara shel Avodah Zarah. Because of the closeness people had with Hashem, because they lived in Eretz Yisrael, it was easier to deal with Avodah Zarah. That's how Rav Schwab explains this Chazal, if you lived in Eretz Yisrael versus if you didn't live in Eretz Yisrael. By the way, where does David HaMelech, hopefully we're going to learn the next parak tonight. Where does he run to? He runs to Eretz Plishtim. Well, Eretz Plishtim is a chelik of Eretz Yisrael. It's not really part of Chutz La'aretz. How do we know this? Yitzchak Avinu, remember, was considered an Oila Tamid. It's considered that both Avram and Yaakov had to flee Eretz Yisrael. But because Yitzchak was a korban, he was offered on the Akedah, his Kedusha was such that he could never leave Eretz Yisrael. But we know he went to Avimelech. Who was Avimelech? Avimelech Melech Plishtim. So Yitzchak was in the Plishtim area. And yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked him from leaving Eretz Yisrael. So must be that the Plishtim is not really considered Chutz La'aretz.
What part is that now? What part is that?
Plishtim
Now.
is Gaza.
Gaza. Mhm.
Ashkelon.
Mhm.
Ashkelon, it was part of that. There were 5 cities: Ashkelon, Azza, Gat.
Got.
So it's that area. So how do we explain this kasha? So the after Haytayetz Plishtim talk Eretz Yisrael, V'hayel Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, Af de ma'olam lo kavshu oto Yisrael. We never conquered it. And it was always battles between Plishtim and Yisrael. And the Radak says in Breishis Chavav, Plishtim afal pishi me'eretz Yisrael lo hulzaka biyodam, lefichach rabu imam alagvul, v'chol ze lo diem shlotia muchzekes biyadam, kula afal pishachal kula hozaka biyadam ad bachron limos HaMashiach. You know when we're going to get to Plishtim area? Limos HaMashiach, says the Radak. Up until then, where it says, etaknizi v'sakadmoni. There are 3 nations we haven't conquered yet, and that's going to only happen in the times of the Mashiach. So even though there's a din that etzem kedushas le'eretz Yisrael shnogel mitzvos atlus ba'aretz, and Eretz Plishtim is considered in that, but there's another concept that to Eretz Shabo Gorim Yisrael, the shoymrim ba Torah mitzvos, that gives it an extra Tosefes kedusha. So there's 2 things that give Eretz Yisrael kedusha to Aretz, that intrinsically, and the fact that Jews are living there and being shomer Torah mitzvahs and Plishtim, that never happened. The fact that when we say the chol mi shadar b'chutz la'aretz k'aviv avodah zara, ein ze din be'etzem kedusha to Aretz. In kein adar be'etz Plishtim lo nichlal b'mamar zeh l'chutz la'aretz. It would be considered chutz la'aretz. It's totally ashnei advarim b'yachad. The mi shadar be'eretz Yisrael sheyesh bo kedusha to Aretz yachad in Klal Yisrael. The shoymim matar v'mitzvahs hu yesh lo elokah. Aval mi shadar b'chutz la'aretz v'nichlal b'zeh af makom she'ein dorim shan Yisrael. Where it's Plishtim, don't make a shmein lo elokah. That means even if you're in a place that technically was in Eretz Yisrael, but there aren't Jews living there being shomer Torah mitzvahs, it's considered chutz la'aretz. It's a huge yesod. So now we understand why Yitzchak Avinu was permitted to go to Eretz Plishtim. It was not considered like he left Eretz Yisrael, because then there were no Jews living there. He was the only Jew. There was no Torah mitzvahs. So Eretz Plishtim was not any worse than the rest of Eretz Yisrael. It was full of tum anyways. But by David, where there were Jews living in other places, it's considered a yeridah to chutz la'aretz when he went to Eretz Plishtim. I think it's a very nice.
But he's going with 500 members of his own army. So he really does have a chevra.
And by the way,
community.
Bernie, excellent. And we're going to see what happens when he goes to Plishtim. Well, let's hold on to that. Rav Schwab also says that it's easier to study Torah. Sort of, I think Bernie said it. Easier to study Torah, especially Torah Shabbat Per Eretz Yisrael, and that prevents worshiping avodah zarah. Pasuk Chav. Ve'ata al yipol dami artza mineged pnei Hashem. Here, David. First, he started off by cursing the people who were fighting against him. But now he's davening that he should be spared himself. He doesn't want his blood to be spilled in Eretz Yisrael. Ki yatzah melech Yisrael levakesh parosh echad. That Shaul HaMelech is trying to chase after a little flea, meaning himself. Kasher yudov hakoreh b'arim, like the hawk chases after little rodents in the mountains. Yeah, like a bird of prey. Now, even though we've heard this before, Shaul chatati shuv b'nei David. Shaul apologizes, says, I sinned towards you. It's not going to happen again. I was foolish and I made mistakes. Vayan David vayomer. David says, here's your spear. Let one of your youths come and take it. Why didn't David bring it back himself? Because it shows that really David has no trust in Shaul anymore. And he didn't have the azus to go and bring it back himself. He knows, because he's already decided in his mind that he's going to have to flee, because it's too difficult to change Shaul's mind. Vayan, yeah. David continues, Pasuk Chav Gimel. Vashem yashiv la'ish tzidkato v'medanatosh v'natcha Hashem hayom biyad v'lo aviti l'shlei chad. I've never wanted to throw my hand against the anointed one of Hashem. And the Pasuk Chav Daled v'nei kasher gadla nafshecha yom hazeh be'enai kein tigdal nafshi b'nei Hashem yatzlein mikol tzara. He's davening again to Kodesh Baruch Hu that he should be saved, that he should be vayatzilenu mikol tzara. Vayomer Shaul David. This is the last dialogue between Shaul and David. Baruch atah bni David, gam asot ta'aseh v'gam yachol tuchal. Vayelech David l'darko v'Shaul shav limkomo. Now, does that language, Vayelech David l'darko v'Shaul shav limkomo, does that resonate with anybody? This is the same language at the end of Parshas Vayetze. Vayelech vayashav Lavan limkomo.
Lavan.
V'Yaakov halach l'darko. So let's learn the Meshech Chochma there. Vayashav Lavan limkomo, v'Yaakov halach l'darko. Perush. Ki mi sheyesh lo ish kadosh ki Yaakov b'toch beito. Yaakov lived in Lavan's house for 20 years. Some of Yaakov's tzidkis, asidus, some of his perfume should have rubbed off on Lavan. But it didn't happen. V'kasher halach Yaakov shav Lavan limkomo harishon. It means Lavan goes back to his original place. Hainu matzavo hara'a b'deut uv'midot. That means Lavan stays Lavan. His attributes, his thoughts, his philosophy is hashkafa. He's a ramai, he's a cheater, the ohev mamon, and he's greedy. But then it says Yaakov halach l'darko. Shat tzadik v'tamid chacham amiti hu olech mimakom harishon lema'alat gdulot. The Tamid Chacham is growing. He's on a derech. Talmidei Chachamim ein lehem menucha ba'olam hazeh v'olam haba. Shemitosfim mala mala miyom liyom. So what happens when it says immediately that Yaakov went l'darko? What happens? Vayivka ubo malachei Elokim. Immediately, Yaakov has a vision of angels. The Havein says the Meshech Chochma. Ki hacha vayelech David l'darko mamish k'mo v'Yaakov halach l'darko. When it says here that David went on his derech, shemamshich la'alot mala mala, he continues to grow. B'madrigat haruchaniyot, spiritually. Aval Shaul shavim kamo, k'mo Lavan lahavdil. V'lo nishpa mimalos David she'amar klau. And Shaul was not influenced by all these statements of David. And what the Meshech Chochma is saying, that Shaul's words are lip service. It really didn't cause a change in Shaul. Now we're going to see, Sydney pointed out to me, and all of those on the Daf Yomi here, we learned in the Gemara in Moed Katan, a phenomenal medrash on Shaul, which we're going to learn later on in another parak. So Shaul is like like Shimshon in a sense. There's a duality. He's got tremendous milas gedolos. On the other hand, he failed in certain ways, and that's what we see. This sort of the duality of Shaul. Again, we see it in these psukim.
And then the Gemara also says today that there's a bas kol that came and said that David was not forgiven for the avera for Uriah Hitti.
Right.
The next problem for David.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see that problem. That's going to be in Shmuel Beis. Yeah. Okay, let's start Perek Chav Zayin. So it basically is a continuum from what we just learned. Vayomer David elibo, ata now, esfe yom echad biyad Shaul, ein li tov ki imalet l'Eretz Plishtim. I can't stay another day in Eretz Yisrael because he's chasing me. I'm going to escape to the Eretz Plishtim. V'noash mivnei Shaul, v'noash mimeni Shaul, l'vaksheni od b'chol gvul Yisrael v'nimlat tim yado. Shaul hasn't given up on chasing me throughout Eretz Yisrael. Remember, when David cut off the corner of Shaul's garment, he thought that Shaul would stop chasing him. But now that he saw this happen twice and 3 times, So now David's had enough. You know what? Not every day are you going to be saved by a nace. Chazal say in Psochim, Sha'osin lo nace menakin lo mezachiosa. I'm sorry. La v'chol yomim misrachesh nisa. That's Psochim nun amid beis. That you can't rely on a nace every day. Number two, Sha'osin lo nace menakin lo mezachiosa. Shabbos Lamed Beis says, if a person is a beneficiary of a nace, some of your zechuyos, some of your, you have a bank account in Shammai. Some of your funds are going to be withdrawn to pay for the nace that happened to you today. So now David HaMelech has been saved twice. He's concerned about the zechuyos that are being taken away from him.
The same concept as Shmor Nafshecha.
Well, Shmor Nafshecha is a concept of you have to protect your health. Like Moshe Feinstein said, you shouldn't smoke from that pasuk. I think this is more spiritual, that when you're saved, you want to say, Bernie, that he's just protecting himself through a natural way. I'm just going to escape. But you're saying you're not relying on a nace. Just do what you have to do to protect yourself.
Shaul and Avner were chasing him to kill him.
Right. By the way, the Malbim here, if you look in the Malbim, he gives 3 reasons why David thought it was good to escape to Plishtim. If I stay in Eretz Yisrael, Shaul's going to think that I'm going to continue gathering people to rebel against him. So in Eretz Plishtim, there are no Jews in Eretz Plishtim. One excuse for Shaul is going to be removed. That's number 1, says the Malbim. He says once I'm out of his picture, I'm not in front of him all the time, he's going to forget about me. He's going to misyaesh milavak sheni. He's not going to be worried about me if I'm not within the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael. And now, if he's going to attack me in Eretz Plishtim, the Plishtim will protect me as well because I'm going to make alliances with them. By the way, Breishis Rabbah, you notice it says, you notice the pasuk says, Vayomer David el libo. David speaks to his heart. So Breishis Rabbah says like this. This is in Parshas Noach. Vayomer Hashem el libo. Harshaim hein Bershus Liban. Rishaim are sort of in control of by their heart. So by novel, it says Omer novel bilibo. Vayomer Esav bilibo. Vayomer Yeravam bilibo. Vayomer Haman bilibo. Avalat tzadikim liban bershusam. Tzadikim have control over their hearts. The heart usually is the seat of your emotions, and it's sort of it drives you in terms of what you're doing. So Rishoyim are driven by their heart, their will to have them do evil things. But Tzadikim control their heart. Where do we see this? Chana hi medaberet al liba. Here it says Vayomer David el libo. It says by Daniel, Vayosem Daniel al libo. So they're very nice. So sometimes just a little diuk in a pasuk, we can see a lot of intent in what really those things mean. Pasuk base. Vayakam David vayavor hu v'sheish mot yish asher imo Lachish ben Mauch melech Gad. So David takes 600 of his soldiers and he crosses into Plishtim again to Akish melech Gad, which, if you remember he was escaping, but he went by himself and he acted like a Meshigana and he got saved there. So the shaila is, the Meforshim asked, why did he go back again? Last time he was in danger. So people explain that, number one, then he was by himself, now he's coming with 600 people. And then here it says that he sent to Achish information to request permission to come. And Achish accepted. And now it became public knowledge that Shaul was chasing David. So now they understood, because remember, initially they didn't understand what's David HaMelech doing here. Now Achish understands why he's there. And with a soldier, this hero who killed Goliath with 600 soldiers, so they thought they were going to help Achish in his battles against Shaul. So that's why it's not surprising that he went back. Pasuk Gimel. Vayeshe David machish begad hu v'nashav yishuvei to David u'shtei nashav achinoam ha'Yisraelit v'Avigail eshet Naval ha'Karmelit. David with his soldiers are dwelling with Achish and with his two wives. And
Perhaps, can I just say, maybe the
Yeah.
fact that he's citing wives, so he's stating he's not going to want to jeopardize his family. So he will want to be, be in Achish's territory in a peaceful manner. Because because it states the wives that he wouldn't want to jeopardize them in any way. So
right.
that would be.
By the way, there's in Tehillim Kuf Yutes, it says Va'adabra b'mitzvotecha neged lachim v'lo evosh. I'm going to talk about mitzvahs in front of kings, and I'm not going to be embarrassed. From here, Chazal learned that he was shomer Torah there, and Achish didn't stop them. Him and his family and his wives. So he was given a full life in Eretz Plishtim, each one with their family. Where in Eretz Yisrael they couldn't live that way. Now, the Meforshim also say, "Le'ezet sorech hizkir pasuk shavigail hayta eshes novel." I mean, why do we describe Avigail as the wife of Novel? I mean, what does that add? L'chora Novel was a bad person. Who wants to recall that? It's a bizoyan to her.
But in a way, the fact that she lived with somebody so evil, so she did not in any way, she was not influenced by it. So that could be Shavach in a way.
That's number one. And Novel was a very wealthy man. And so she was used to the finer things. Even so, she was masking to go with David to Eretz Gad. It shows her gedula.
Mm-hmm.
Pasuk Dalet. Vayugad l'Shaul ki varach David. Gad. And Shaul hears that David escaped to Gad. And v'lo yasaf od levaksho. And in fact, Shaul stops chasing after him.
Would that be because he just didn't want to go into the territory of the Plishtim? I guess he just didn't want to do that.
So the Kliyakar says he figured that he's going to be killed by the Plishtim. They will kill David for him.
That they will kill him.
Don't have to go in.
Mm-hmm.
The Kliyakar also wants to say that if it wasn't for that, he would have chased after him. Even it's a proof that Shaul was still interested in chasing after him. Vayomer David el Achish, Im na matzati chen beinecha, yitnu li makom be'achat arei hasadeh. David asks for territory outside of the city. Ve'eshva sham, and I will sit there and I will dwell there with my people. V'lama yeshev avdecha be'iram l'machayim imcha. I don't have to. It's like Yosef telling his brothers, "Let's go live in Eretz Goshen." I don't want to be matriach to you. I want to do our own thing that we're going to see. David had a reason why he wanted to do this. First of all, he didn't demand a walled city with big security because that might make Achish worried about him. He's going to live simply out in the field in an open city. So that he won't have it won't cause jealousy, because two kings, David was a king, he was anointed a king, and Achish a king. He doesn't want to create problems between them. Vayitelo Achish bayamu et Ziklag. Achish gives him the city of Ziklag. Lachen atat Ziklag l'machei Yehuda ad hayom hazeh. This became the city of Bnei Yehuda. Now, in Yoshua, it says that the tribe of Yehuda captured it, but then later on, the Plishtim took it back. However, from the time that David HaMelech with these 600 men dwelled there, it remained among the Davidic kings forever. Now, if you remember, when we learned the introduction to Sefer Shmuel, who is the author of Sefer Shmuel? After Shmuel died, so some say it was Yirmiyahu Navi, and that's what he meant. That up until the time of Yirmiyahu Navi, you're talking about another 500 years, Ziklag remained within the confines of the Davidic kings.
I thought I read that, I think, was it Natan? Wasn't Natan? Didn't he continue the, I thought it was Natan that continued the, after Shmuel died.
So Nasan, yes, Nasan and Navi, absolutely,
Right.
it was Nasan. And then at some
Right.
point also says Nasan died. So
Oh,
some
so
say it
who's
was
after him?
Yirmiyahu Navi,
Oh, Yirmiyahu.
according to many opinions.
Ernie, another reason why he chose not to live in the capital city is here he is wants to protect himself and his men from falling prey to the Avodah Zarah that would be present in a major city or the capital. Instead, he went to the open fields where they'd be less likely to interact.
Right?
Like the Jews in Goshen, as Ernie had said.
Like Goshen.
Mhm.
The Pasuk Zayin, Vayim Mispar Yamim Asher Yashav David B'Snei Plishtim Yamim Ve'arba Chadashim. They dwelled there for 4 months. So, Yamim sometimes can mean years. So there's a whole debate here. The Mitzudas Sion says he was there 1 year and 4 months. But it can't be, because according to the Seder Olam, from the death of Shmuel to the death of Shaul was only 4 months.
So this one says 4 months and 2 days.
Right, so most of the Meforshim hold that it was just 4 months.
And 2 days.
Ches, Vayal David Vanashav, Vayivshetu El Akshuri, Vagizri Vamaleki, Ki Heinei Yoshvot Ha'arth Hashem Olam Boach Ashura Vaderetz Mitzrayim. There were neighbors, the Shuri, the Gzir, Vamaleki, and David HaMelech gathered his soldiers and they went out and they destroyed them. And they took Bizoyon, they took Shlal, and they killed they killed Ish v'Isha. Now the Malbim says that these Amim were from the Sheva Ha'amim, where the din was Lo Sechayek Kol Neshama. And the Amalekim, it says Timchet Zecher Amalek. Now, the shaila is like this. Didn't Shaul HaMelech wipe out the Amalekim? Yes, he left Agag. But Agag, and then it says Agag had relations with a Shifcha, and that's why Haman came. That's why he's called Haman HaAgagi. But here it says they went into battle with this whole tribe of Amalekim. How could there be all these Amalekim still around? So Rav Sternbuch, alive today, Rav Moshe Sternbuch in the Moadim Uzmanim, says, "The b'shar sheshaul v'ha'am asku bebiza uvetfisach agag barchu harbe amalekim v'lo nerogu." He says that when Shaul and the people, remember there, they took booty. So while they were taking the booty, a lot of Amalekim ran away. Now, Rashi says, when we learned in Perek Tezvav, Tziva Hashem l'Shaul laharog et behemat ha'Amalekim. If you remember, Shaul was commanded to kill even the animals. The question is, what did the animals do? So there Rashi says, Mishum dehem hayu bale kishuf. The Amalekim were sorcerers and wizards. Umishanin atzman v'doimim lebehema. They would change their appearance and look like animals. The kivan to show lo haragat behemot aplishtim hayu harbe Amalekim sheshuna atzman l'tzurat behema v'lo naragu. A lot of the Amalekim, these Amalekim who are now around for David to kill, where Amalekim had turned themselves into animals through wizardry, and then they turned themselves back to human form. By the way, the Rambam and the Ravid says, the lekachi of larag Amalek im hishlimu im Yisrael v'gam kiblu aleim l'kaim zayin mitzvos bnei Noach. That if an Amaleki says, I want to do peace with you, and I'm willing to do Makayim, the Sheva mitzvos bnei Noach, then you don't have to kill them. Im ken yesh loimer dayu harbe shasur ken the Elohim shahargu kan, and these are the Amalekim that he now killed. Says Pasuk Tes, V'hika David is haaretz v'lo yichaya ish v'isha. He didn't allow men or women alive. V'lakachtzonu v'okar v'chamorim u'gmolim u'vgadim v'yeshav v'yov ola Achish. So again, he brought booty to Achish because he wanted to show that he's loyal to Achish. And then we said he killed the men and women because of the din of lo sachaya kol neshama. And what about how could he keep the assets of the Amalekim? Don't you have to destroy that? So that's by the Sheva Amim. There's no chiyuv to destroy the shlal of the Sheva Amim. You have to destroy their avodah zarah, their idols, but not their booty. Because Rashi in Chumash there in Shmos says the mitzvahs la'abed is kol amalek zoch in the cave of Gabehemos. But the Rambam and the Chinuch don't bring that. And when Shmuel told Shaul to kill the behemoths, the Rambam and the Ravid hold it was a horosh shah, but it's not a permanent halacha that you have to destroy their assets. The other shot, the Meshech Chochmah says, when we have a chiyuv to destroy the assets of Amaleki, that's when we're at Tzibur. But a Yachid, David HaMelech is now acting as a Yachid. And there's no mitzvah to destroy the booty of Amalek unless you're coming as Gans Klal Yisrael. And the Moadim Uzmanim, Rav Moshe Sternbach says something even more fascinating. Chiyuv mechias Amalek shayach rak im nuchal abdam legamri. If you know that you can destroy all of Amalek, then you have a chiyuv to destroy everything. Like in the time of Shaul, where all of Amalek were in one place. Aval, the Moadim Uzmanim says, Achar kach shnispazu l'chol ha'olam. Once Amalek was scattered, v'i efshar od l'kai mitzvahs b'chias Amalek, ein chiyuv afilu limchoses miktzosam. There's no chiyuv to destroy even part of them. The din of mechias Amalek is you have to destroy all of them. Okay, I think we just have a few more. We'll leave the few more psukim to the end, and then we'll start the most important parak Chavches, the final battle against Plishtim with Shaul. As we come to the sort of the denouement of Sefer Shmuel, we will start that next week. Any comments? Well, we've got a lot of good comments, but any other